The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The apostles said to the Lord, "Increase our faith." The Lord replied, "If you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you would say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and planted in the sea,' and it would obey you. Who among you would say to your servant, who has just come in from plowing or tending sheep in the field, 'Come here immediately and take your place at table'? Would he not rather say to him, 'Prepare something for me to eat. Put on your apron, wait on me while I eat and drink. You may eat and drink when I'm finished'? Is he grateful to that servant because he did what was commanded? So should it be with you. When you have done all you have been commanded, say, 'We are profitable servants. We have done what we were obliged to do.'" The Gospel of the Lord. Increase our faith is the opening petition of today's gospel. We hear the idea of faithfulness throughout the scriptures this evening. Habakkuk teaches that faithfulness to Yahweh enables the upright to live. We hear how St. Paul, teaching Timothy to be faithful to the gospel, for it is sacred and it is precious. And then Jesus teaches the proper attitude toward being faithful. No self-congratulation, but rather a sense of duty, a sense of responsibility. And so Jesus teaches that the key to increasing one's faith is to have the attitude of a servant. Because Jesus explains that growing one's faith is closely connected to humility. To follow all that the Lord commands, humbly, diligently, and with a deepening of a faith that will naturally occur for all of us. And so Jesus also reminds us in the gospel this evening about the mustard seed, the smallest of all seeds. And it's a reminder to all of us of how much God treasures those things that are small. After all, he came to us as one who was small himself, a helpless little baby, without a home, in a forgotten corner of an occupied country, and he feels a special affinity for those things in the world that are weak and fragile, the overlooked, the neglected, the dismissed, the little. Consider Saint Mother Teresa, who dared to embrace and love those nobody else would even touch. She once said that while we may not all be able to do great things, we can all do small things with great love. That message has moved millions of all faiths, and even to those of no faith all over the world, because great things often begin with the smallest of things. And so why do the apostles and the disciples ask Jesus to increase their faith? They say that so that they can extend to those they will minister to, those they will encounter, those who they will be called to serve. They ask for it for a sense of prayer, for an ability to forgive, an ability to understand, an ability to love one another, a chance to reach out to the smallest amongst us. And so, because we're talking about faith, we need to focus our attention tonight on God's faithfulness to you and I. What does it mean for God to be faithful to each of us? God's fidelity, I believe, is usually linked with his accepting love, his great mercy that we celebrate this year and every day, and his compassion for each of us. Because God's forgiveness and his fidelity are his greatest expression of his deep caring for all of us. Because God forgives us not only once, but as often as we need it. There is no number. He calls us back, so great is his faithfulness and his love for each of us. And this faith that the apostles seek an increase of is a call to that confidence, to that trust. Because God is full of faith. He's full of confidence, and he trusts you and me. Because our confidence then flows from that prayer, that trust, that support as we encounter our God each and every day. Because God has chosen you and I. He has called us as trusted servants to have the faith the size of that little mustard seed. And he expects us then to go out, to carry on the mission. But what is this mission, this call to service, the invitation that God gives to all of us, young and old alike? The invitation today in particular is a call for respect for life for each and every one of us. Because respect for life, God's precious and unique gift, is a graced attitude that characterizes the child of God. Because this respect produces acts of love towards one's neighbors and to each other. This action, in turn, deepens our sense of respect for one another. And where does it begin, or where does it end? Only you can decide to stand up for what you believe, to live the gospel, to fight for justice, equality for human rights, against abortion on demand, against capital punishment, and so much more. To live out the gospel message of faithfulness, to love and care for one another. All it takes is to have the faith the size of a tiny mustard seed. Because within all of us, we are all called, invited by God to be of service to one another. Service, a giving of ourself, a willingness to assist someone in need, to share time, to share gift. And sometimes it's easy, and other times it can be very hard. But the invitation is put there before us today and every day of our lives. Because God is faithful. He offers us the call of service, of forgiveness each and every day. And he shows us how to live it, how to be faithful, how to be true as a servant of God. Because Jesus is the model, the true servant of love for you and me. Because he gave his life on the cross for all of us. A true sign of love, of faithfulness for all of us is the example that he says, no greater love or service than to give one's life for all. I'm sure our service, our call won't invite us to die on a cross like Jesus, but yet it's still important because the call, the invitation, no matter how large or small, is vital, and we need to begin it today as we gather here in prayer, as we respect life. Because as the church focuses its attention on one another and all the other victims of injustice, it must do so with a fidelity to the gospel call for the reverence of all human life. We must use all the various resources in the church to care tenderly for the victim, to teach our own as well as our neighbors, that God's vision of the dignity of each of his children, our brothers and sisters, and to stand up for the value in all of our society. That's what the call to faithfulness is all about. Increase our faith, we cry out today, to have the faith of the mustard seed, the call to respect life. That is what Jesus wants from you and I today. Tested as Timothy by society, our prayer to our God, increase our faith, will be but a plea, but also a pledge of our faithfulness. Because when our fidelity is translated into action, then we will truly be a people of respect life for one another. And our faith, the size of the mustard seed, will impact the world in which we live. And so let our prayer be this today. Lord, listen with compassion to our prayers and fill our hearts with gratitude for the gift of life we have, and with profound respect for the lives of all those we meet, most especially all your children. May we remember that every human being at every stage and condition is willed and loved by God. For this reason, every human life is sacred. May our faith increase as did the mustard seed, and may God bless all of our lives as we bless one another.